the season, but before that, as you said, Jackson, there's even some crazy realignment stuff going on right now.
Oh, yeah. It's going to get even crazy. So, when this headline broke out, what was your reaction when it happened?
I was shocked. I had been someone for a while that, and just based on everything we've been hearing, I just didn't think we would see a school leave until the media rights deal has gotten done, because in terms of what we like, there has been no change in the media rights deal. So therefore nothing has changed since the last time the rumors of Colorado leaving the conference persisted in June, in May, and all the other months. Nothing had really changed. So to me, they hadn't left before. Why would they leave now? Well, the reason it seems to be is because the difference is the timeline. That was back in May. That was back in June, which they were already felt like, okay, we're pushing a deadline a little bit. We got the season coming up. We don't want to have to worry about a media deal. We want to just be worried about football, and we want to have our place in our future in college football secure. And I think that's why you see them going over to Colorado, from going over and joining the Big 12. It sounds like from everything we've heard is that they just wanted to go somewhere where there was a media rights deal in place. They felt it was a more safe and secure option for them overall. So I was absolutely shocked. I was someone who'd been saying I didn't think Colorado was going to leave, and I especially didn't think they were going to leave until there was any new information. But the fact that there was no new information on a media rights deal seems to be the reason they left, and I can't blame them for that. I think it makes a lot of sense for them business-wise in terms of, look, they're going to get $31 million per year, I believe it is, once this kicks in 2024. There's been a lot of rumors floating around about what the Pac-12 number is going to be at. Some have said higher. I have a hard time believing that at this exact moment the Pac-12 is going to get over $31 million, just with everything that's persisted. And if they had a chance to get more than that, I just don't know if Colorado would have left. I feel like they've done enough of their homework. When you are making a decision this massive as changing conferences, as they have a history doing now, they did it before, obviously, you have to be informed on everything. I feel like they are informed, and they felt like they made the best decision for them. So I was absolutely shocked, but now that I hear the reasoning, it makes a lot of sense for them, and it'll be interesting to see, because look, I believe it was one 10-win season in the Pac-12 overall.
2016.
Yeah, 2016. I mean, and Deion's going to bring a lot of excitement. I think he's got a chance to bring them back a little bit, but there's a lot of new in the Big 12 right now. I'm just interested to see, we're seeing a lot of this new transition, right? Power 5 to Power 5 jumping. I'm interested to see how long it's going to take some of these programs to get up to speed. Is Colorado going to be in the Big 12 championship game as soon as the 2024 season? I would be surprised, but you never say never, right? So I am shocked by the news, but it's kind of the world we live in now. Just around this time last year, right, we were all shocked by the news of USC and UCLA leaving for the Big Ten. So expect the unexpected when it comes to college football.
What's the plan for Utah, and what should they do now?
I think the plan for Utah is to wait, which I am completely good with. There are a lot of people who will tell you, I shouldn't say a lot, but there's at least a lot of people in my comments who like to say Utah is going to end up back in the Mountain West. Utah coming off back-to-back Pac-12 champions.
I heard that yesterday on a Big Game Boomer Twitter space. They're like, oh, Utah's going back to the Mountain West. I'm like, I'm sorry. Have you seen them play?
No, they're fine. And I really like the Mountain West. I think it's a good brand of football, everything. This is no disrespect to them, but it's not Power 5 football. That's a fact, right? If all those schools could and they were offered by the Pac-12 or any of those other schools, they would move up. As if San Diego State, that's a whole weird situation we can talk about later, but as San Diego State wanted to do, and then the Pac-12 wasn't ready for them. So anyway, it's all that. But Utah's put themselves in a position coming off back-to-back Pac-12 championships now, coming off back-to-back Rose Bowl appearances. And I've heard some people saying that they've lost back-to-back Rose Bowls, and like, well, yeah, you want to win games, but let's not penalize a team for making Rose Bowls, doing what other teams have. And that, I just think that stuff is ludicrous. And that's what a lot of people like to do with athletes in general, is they like to penalize. People bring up LeBron's finals record. And look, I'm not here to say like LeBron, Jordan, the GOAT. I'm just saying it seems weird to me to criticize someone for making it farther than like a lot of other players have and ended up losing still, when players have lost in previous rounds and then they get off free. I just think that's kind of a strange line of thinking in general. But for going back to Utah, the question you asked, I still think what's best for Utah is to wait, see what the media rights deal is. It sounds like the reason Colorado left, from everything at least I've heard, is that they've just from reading. I'm not saying I'm connected and like talking to someone at Colorado. I'm talking about what I've seen on social media and what's been reported, is they got antsy and they wanted to go where there's stability in a media rights deal. I understand that line of thinking, but look, Mark Harlan was at Pac-12 Media Day. He was the representative of amongst the ADs picked by Commissioner Kliavkoff to stand up there and stand firm in the Pac. I do not think the Pac-12 is dead. I think they still got a chance to be fine. I don't think, like I said, I don't think the media rights deal is going to come in at $31 million, but I still think there's a chance it will be right in that 25 to 30 million range because, look, these networks are going to want Washington, Oregon, Utah, and some of these other schools once they get back up. Arizona's on the rise. I think Arizona State with Kenny Dillingham is going to be there soon as well. Networks are going to want to broadcast these games because, yes, you want the Big Ten, the SEC games first, but after that, you want the teams that are going to win and be producing at a high level, and especially you're going to want teams that are going to be in the college football playoff. And because of the way the new bowl structure is going to work, the new college football playoff structure is going to work, we are going to be seeing a Pac-12 team in the postseason every year going forward now because the conference champion will be able to go in. And that's another reason why I want Utah to stay in the Pac for right now, barring an implosion, right? If another school leaves, which doesn't seem likely because I think if Arizona was going to leave, I think they would have made this announcement together. At least that's my opinion, kind of like what we saw last year when USC and UCLA left together. I don't feel like Arizona's going to leave today, let's say. It definitely could be something that happens in the future. Can't rule anything out with the way conference realignment's going right now, but just with the position Utah's in, I feel like they're set up for success in the Pac-12. They are, and whatever we're going to be calling it now, right now it's the Pac-9 at the moment with all the change and everything going on. But I feel like Utah's set up for success in the Pac. I like them waiting out a deal. I like the opportunity for them to continue to get to the college football playoff. I think that's something that's really appealing, just start to with that expanded format, which I think they're a lot better set up to do with even, let's just play the number game, 9 game. Jackson, what's the Big 12 up to now with the addition of Colorado?
13.
So yeah, I mean, there's 9 schools versus 13 already, and is it only 13 when you? I thought it was even more.
Right now
yeah, for right now, but in general, it's even less teams, a better opportunity to get in the college football playoff. I'm someone who I've said for a while, I thought originally we were going to be heading for super conferences. Maybe that could change. I still feel like that's where this is eventually going to end up, but I want Utah to wait, stay patient, get all the facts, do what's best. I don't think Utah and the other Pac-12 schools feel this pressure and the urgency that it sounds like that Colorado was. And just because of the level that Utah is operating at, I just don't have a fear about them missing out and being left behind. If I'm wrong, I'll own it. I was wrong about Colorado leaving, but I think it's best for Utah to wait and remain patient. And I trust Mark Harlan and President Randall, who are making this decision for Utah athletics.
I'll be honest, I don't know who that 14th team could be, but Utah would be a great candidate because, they bring a lot to the table. If you put Utah in the Big 12, the BYU-Utah rivalry would be back on rivalry week as a whole, and it would make a lot of money for the Big 12. For sure.
Yeah, that's the thing that appeals to me most about joining the Big 12. I've actually said that on my own show, is the opportunity to renew the BYU-Utah rivalry. Not the opportunity now to renew the Colorado-Utah rivalry since Colorado just left. That was it just wasn't a rivalry. The fans didn't really care. Just one of those things like, oh, we're playing Colorado post-Thanksgiving. No one cared. The networks, everything. No one cared about Utah versus Colorado unless those 2 teams were good in the same year, which really didn't happen because, as we said, the Buffs just didn't perform great in the Pac-12 overall when you look at their tenure in the Conference of Champions. But yeah, I think there are definitely a lot of pros to if Utah decided to go to the Big 12. As I mentioned, I just feel like it's best for Utah to wait and see what their options are. And if the media rights deal comes in super low, then yes, them and the other corner schools, maybe they do end up going to the Big 12. That is an option. But I just think when you change conferences, even when it's a lateral like Power 5 to Power 5, I just still think you're all the new opponents and everything. You're not familiar with coaches' tendencies. It's a whole new recruiting landscape and everything. I just think it takes a little bit to get back up to prominence. And I don't think especially a Utah team, which let's look ahead to Utah, right? Which they are recruiting at a very high level. But Utah football is going to face a very tough road being as good as they've been if we include this season and the previous 2, and then look ahead to 2024, because Utah is going to lose Cam Rising, they're going to lose Brant Keith, they're going to lose Thomas Yasmin, they're going to lose Devon Bennett. They are going to lose so many of their prominent offensive players. I think you factor that into changing conferences too. I just think that would lead to it could lead to a rough stretch for Utah football a little bit. They have enough talent where they could navigate that transition okay, but once again, we're in uncharted territory when we're talking about these teams changing conferences at the Power 5 level, really, at least in recent years, and we'll see how it goes. But as I said, I'm a fan of Utah waiting. I would like for Utah to remain in the Pac, but that the Pac-12 has to live up to their end of the bargain, right? They got to be able to bring and expand and bring some schools in, something they haven't been able to do. They got to get the media rights deal done. So I'm very interested to see how this whole saga is going to revolve itself.
Be the likely networks to do the media deal with the Pac-12?
The likely network, I think number one is ESPN from everything that I've read up on. It seems like ESPN wants those Pac-12 after dark, the late night games. I think there's a lot of appeal in having a 7 to 8 o'clock Mountain Time big matchup between like an Oregon and Utah, or an Oregon and Washington. Like you get the premier brands playing each other. I think there's a lot of appeal in that still. So it sounds like ESPN is still the top suitor. And then based on everything we heard last time, it sounds like it could be a streaming network as well. I think last I heard from Andrew Marchand, he said that Apple was the front runner, which I was surprised. I thought Amazon was going to be the one in the streaming wars to kind of emerge there just because of the success they've had with the Thursday night football package last year. That was very popular. But right now, based on what I've read, it seems like some combination of ESPN and Apple are the most likely. But look what the ACC just did with the CW. Maybe the CW would want to get into something with Utah. It's something I kind of resisted in the past, but might be an avenue the Pac-12 has to explore now. It doesn't seem like a NBC would get in. I don't think a CBS or a Fox are going to end up getting in. It seems like they're pretty loaded up with what they got. But as I mentioned, I still expect the main one to be ESPN. And the Pac-12, let's just talk about what the one thing the Pac-12 does have going for them, because Commissioner Kliavkoff said the longer we wait, the better the media deal gets for us. I don't know if I believe that, but the one thing I will say is the Pac-12 is going to have a great year. I mean, when you were talking about the amount of talent in this conference at the quarterback position, the most popular position in all of sports, it's immense. And it's going to lead lots of big games, lots of big numbers in terms of ratings and everything. This is going to be a great season of Pac-12 football. Now, unfortunately, that's going to get hurt the following season, of course, with the departure of USC, UCLA, and even Colorado now, with a lot of people obviously interested in Deion Sanders too. So that is something to keep in mind. But I do think the Pac-12 is going to continue to be competitive. And as we mentioned, just now that they're having that door open for them to get into the college football playoff with it being expanded, I think we could see a Pac-12 team make a little bit of a run. I'm not saying a Pac-12 team's close to winning a championship, but based on how that 12-team playoff is set up, who's to say one Pac-12 team can't be a TCU, right? Make the championship game, hopefully be a little more competitive than TCU was, but I definitely think that's on the table. So I think the main partners are going to be a streaming service like an Apple, and then an ESPN, I expect, and then we'll see where kind of some of those other games end up overall. It's definitely going to be something that's interesting to keep an eye on as this continues, Jackson.